Hey, welcome back to Business 163 Personal Finance, and this is our third and last video micro lecture in Module 1. And so this sort of wraps up Module 1. We have some supplementary reading and some engagement and responses, assignments and activities to do. But in terms of the video micro lectures, this will be the last one in Module 1. And as you can see from the title slide, what we're going to look at in this last video micro lecture is the topic of the 3 steps to financial health. And so really, to give you a broad brush or an overview or a 10,000-foot perspective on how this course is sort of built, in other words, how this course has the opportunity to really change your life, is 3 basic steps. It's pretty easy to understand. So let's see what those 3 steps are. The first step is, as you can see here, a rather simple process. First of all, we learn some basic fundamental concepts together. We're going to learn those concepts through the video micro lectures, through a little bit of the reading, some supplementary videos, supplementary articles, and really get you up to speed on the basic fundamental concepts of financial literacy. And then second is an actually personal engagement activity, which is for you to personally develop a plan. Now, that's really what the core of this class is about, is taking these basic concepts and applying them specifically to your life and your situation, your hopes, your aspirations, your dreams, as well as the constraints and the circumstances you find yourself in. And quite frankly, the plan you develop, having learned these fundamental concepts, well, that's not going to be the last time you develop a plan. Because with any planning exercise in life, as your life goes on and as circumstances change, as you really grow in your skills, grow in your education and knowledge, then have career opportunities and perhaps have maybe some significant life change events. You get married, you want to buy a home, you want to have children and raise a family, you move cities, your income level significantly increases. All those kinds of large life events means you'll probably need to adjust and revisit and re-examine your old plan and modify that and change that and adjust that to your new set of circumstances. So the plan you develop in this class will be very, very powerful and significant, and it won't be the last plan you develop. Returning to the slide there, you can see there, the third is really the activity that we can talk about, that we can provide some insight for you into, but it's something that you will spend the rest of your life doing, which is building new and better habits. This is, quite frankly, this third step is the step that, well, I can't teach you. You have to do it yourself. And we will examine, starting in the very next module on behavioral finance, what are some of your existing habits, and perhaps what are some habits that you need to adjust or change, or, well, start from scratch and build new habits. We'll talk about that as we go on. But again, it's a 3-step process to financial health. You'll get educated with the basic conceptual building blocks. You develop a personalized plan for where you're at and where you'd like to be, and then you build new habits to enforce and execute that plan that you've developed in step 2. That's the process. Let's talk a little bit about it. Step 1, we learn the basic concepts, and of course that is really what this class is about. The fundamental core of this class is to lay out for you and to ask you to consider and engage with the basic building block concepts of financial literacy. You see there the first bullet point on this slide. Like a lot of things in life, personal finance has some basic fundamental concepts that all work together. In that sense, I would use the analogy for those of you who drive an automobile. You've learned how to drive a car, perhaps you took driver education, and then you passed the exam with the Department of Motor Vehicles. You now have a driver's license, right? And the license doesn't really mean that's all you need to drive. It just means that you have passed state licensing and certification to demonstrate that you have all of the practical working knowledge to drive an automobile. And what's that involve? Well, it's more than simply having a set of car keys, right? To drive a car, as you return to the slide here, you have to know how to correctly brake. You have to know how to intelligently steer and, well, avoid other moving objects and other stationary objects. You have to know what the traffic laws are wherever you're driving, and you have to obey them, right? Now, what does that mean? It means that each of those concepts, well, it might have taken you a little bit to learn, but quite frankly, they're all pretty simple concepts, right? How to brake. Well, you step on the brake pedal and the car slows down. How do you steer? Well, you turn the wheel and the car either goes left or right. Oop, gets a little trickier when you put it in reverse, but it's still the same concept, right? And each of those concepts is taken by themselves are relatively simple, and all those concepts work together and affect each other, right? That's really the same thing, or an analogy, for the way personal finance works. You're going to engage with certain fundamental concepts. You see some of them listed in the second bullet point. Some concepts about income, concepts about spending, concepts about saving versus investing, budgeting and creating a budget. And there's a few more, and you can see them in the syllabus, of course, for this course, but the point is each one of these basic concepts is, quite frankly, relatively simple. The magic is how they all work together to get you where you want to go. And so the third bullet point there, you see, you use these basic concepts to come up with a plan to fulfill your future and present needs and desires. So really, step one is learning the basic building blocks which help you distinguish between, well, good and bad advice you'll get and how to make better and smarter decisions about money. That's step one. Step two is asking you over the course of this class to develop a personal plan. And you'll have to answer for yourself questions like some of the ones that I've listed on this slide. Financially speaking, where are you right now? And where do you want to be in the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years? If you know where you want to be, what are you going to need in order to get there? How do you arrive there safely? Well, one of the basic lessons, of course, is, well, you can't spend money that you don't have. Wait a minute, I have a credit card. I can take a loan out. Yes, but you can't do that forever. You can't spend money you don't have. So the next question, you see the next bullet point, what do you earn and what will you earn in the future? And what do you want to spend it on? And what do you not want to spend it on immediately? And therefore, what do you want to do with what you don't spend immediately? Well, those are all just some basic fundamental questions that you will answer for yourself as you develop a personal plan for your financial health and your financial future. That's step two. Step three, very simple. You need to build new habits. And this is, quite frankly, the hardest of the three steps. As I see there in the second bullet point, let's be honest. Everything you're going to learn in this class is, quite frankly, pretty easy to understand. It's not rocket science. The hardest part of achieving financial health is executing on the plan you create. And that will require self-discipline. It will require self-control. It requires you to build up the inner strength to say no to temptations, desires to make purchases, to do things with money that may not be the wisest in the long term. It may feel good in the short term, but it may not be the wisest thing to do in the long run. And quite frankly, this is where most people, when we talk about financial literacy and financial health, step three is where most people fall down. As I said, step one, the basic concepts, they're really not that hard to understand. Okay, we'll talk about them at length in this class from module to module, but I think you'll find every one of the concepts, they kind of make common sense on their own. I mean, you'll learn some things, there'll be some insights, but some things you didn't know, but generally the concepts are not that complex. Step two, you'll use those to create a plan. You'll reflect, you'll think about your life, but the hardest part is executing the plan when it requires you to do something which is, well, quite frankly, not entirely pleasant. All your friends want to go out and you have to say no. You have something you'd like to buy, but your plan says, well, you got to take that money you promised yourself, you committed, you're going to put that in savings, right? That's the hardest part about accomplishing financial health, arriving at financial health, is exercising the self-discipline. Now, what does that mean? Basically, just tell you the honest truth, it means you got to take control of the person you look at in the mirror in the morning. You got to take control of the person in your own mirror. Hey, don't be like so many others around you. Do you realize in the United States, the data tells us that 7 out of 10 households live paycheck to paycheck, and most of those will live paycheck to paycheck for the rest of their lives. What does that mean, living paycheck to paycheck? It means every dollar they make that month from working and slaving at their job, it gets spent. They don't have a reasonable level of savings. They don't have an emergency fund. They are living from paycheck to paycheck, and therefore when the unexpected comes, when an emergency comes or an unexpected opportunity comes, they're not able to move on those things because they don't have the plan working. Don't be like so many others around you to the day they retire, living paycheck to paycheck. Instead, realize, here's just a simple example. Do you realize that if you're young and you start investing $200 a month now, that in 45 years, and with basically any kind of reasonable, safe investment, you will be a millionaire at the end of 45 years by the time you're ready to retire. $200 a month. You know what that is? That's $50 a week. Most of you spend something close to that already on eating out, on coffee, on the kinds of subscriptions you've got, perhaps to Hulu and Netflix and all those other things, right? $200 a month invested for 45 years, you will be a millionaire. That just gives you a little perspective. Don't live paycheck to paycheck. Think of your future and who you want to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, when you're ready to retire. I hope that makes sense. I really do. I want to give you a personal example now. We finish up this third video. This is a relatively short one, but you can see that's me on the in that photo in the middle there. That's me on the right, and then it's my buddy, my good friend Alex. Alex and I are musicians. We came up together through the jazz program at a local university. That's how I met him. He is, quite frankly, one of the first call saxophone players in the entire Bay Area. And there you see him mugging in front of a poster for his residency that I helped him play at 50 Mason in San Francisco. Alex is a wonderful kid. He sounds incredible. I could talk to you for days about his playing, but that's not why I want to talk about him in this class, Personal Finance. You see, Alex is a full-time musician. How does he make a living? Well, he earns money from playing gigs and teaching little kids how to play the saxophone and the piano. That's what he does. And a few years ago, Alex, who I think now is all of maybe 26 years old or so, a few years ago, Alex calls me and says, "Hey, dude, it's been a long time. You got to come over, man. I moved. I live real close to you now." I said, "Really? Where's your address? I'll come over." He said, "Yeah, and I got to tell you, we got to celebrate." I said, "Alex, what are we celebrating?" He says, "I just closed escrow. I bought my first place." Wait a minute. I just said he's a full-time musician. How did a full-time musician buy his own place in Northern California? So I go over there, where he's showing me the place. He's all proud. It's a little condo here in the East Bay. And I'm asking him, "Dude, I'm so proud of you. How did you pull this off?" And he said, "I guess it really wasn't that hard in the sense that I kind of understood pretty easily how I would have to do it." And I said, "Really, what was your plan?" He said, "That's really simple. All I had to do was work 7 days a week and never spend any money on myself until I had the money for the down payment and I could buy a place. So I bought this condo." That's exactly what he did. He worked 7 days a week, either teaching students or playing gigs, and he never spent any money on himself that he didn't have to spend until he had enough money for a down payment to buy a condo. Why do I tell you this story? Because for most people, we believe what we read in the newspaper. Oh, you'll never be able to afford a home in Northern California. Housing's just too expensive. And especially if you don't have a .com tech multi-million-dollar job, you'll never be able to have the income to afford to qualify for a loan to buy a place, much less have the down payment. And what am I telling you? I'm telling you that a full-time musician, a saxophone player here in the Bay Area, figured out what's a basic plan so that if I defer or delay the gratification of things that I'd like to buy now and instead work up the down payment to purchase a home, how long will that take me? Am I able to exercise that level of control and self-discipline until I can close escrow on my own place? Well, he did it, my friends. He bought a little condo. If he can do it, you can do it. But the story doesn't even end there. But you see, Alex was also really, really smart about saving and investing. And after this pandemic, I called him up. I said, hey, dude, I haven't talked to you in a while. How you doing, man? I'm worried about you. Because, with COVID-19, all the gigs have dried up. And are you doing okay, man? Are you still able to stay in the condo, you and your young wife? And he said, oh, yeah, man, dude, it's been hard not playing any gigs. But I tell you what, some of my investments really worked out. And guess what? I said, what? We're selling the place so we can buy a house. That's right. Alex actually paid off his mortgage during the pandemic because of how he had previously decided to invest his savings. You see, these things are possible. He paid the loan on his condo off. He's selling it free and clear in order to buy a home here in the Bay Area. It is possible. Alex isn't a business major. He's not a .com guy. He's not a tech guy. He's not a software developer. He's just a full-time musician who came up with a plan and had the self-discipline and self-control to stick with the plan for the sake of accomplishing his long-term goals. Hey, if he can do it, we all can do it. That's what I want to encourage you with. These 3 steps. Learn the basic concepts, come up with a plan, and build better habits to stick with the plan. Hey, we all can accomplish much, much more than we think we can right now if we stick with the process. Well, I hope that's helpful. In fact, I hope it's more than helpful. I hope it's really encouraging for you as we get started with this personal finance class, my friends. I am so excited to have you in class. Looking forward to next module number 2, and we'll see you in the next set of videos.